Hi YouTubers, welcome back. Today we're doing another Q&A. So we're going to wrap up some questions that were left over from last year. The first one is from C.W. Rowe, and it was in response to quickly painting a ceiling with an 18-inch roller. And the question he asked, do you wash the trays out after you use them? It's a good question because in the video you don't see a liner in the tray. And where I get my supplies, there isn't any. So you either have to create a liner, which may be the subject of a future quick tip, but what you could do is take a large plastic bag or take some lightweight poly and create a tray and tape it around the perimeter of the tray, so that the edges of the plastic don't fall into the paint and cause problems when you're trying to roll off the paint in the tray. But to answer your question is yes. I remove what's left of the paint in the tray, return it to a cut can rather than the supply can, if you will, where there's nice fresh paint in it. Return the used paint to a cut can and use it for cutting in the next day or whenever. And then I do definitely wash the tray out when I'm done. The reason why I do this is because I have two different trays and they both don't allow the latex paint to settle on them like a regular tray might. I don't know if I'm using the right terminology here, but sometimes you can leave paint dry and it won't come off next time you use it. But with these larger trays, for some reason the material resists the paint, so when you go to use it again it'll reactivate the paint and cause you all kinds of problems. So good question. The answer is I wash the trays out whenever I'm done. Now we have a question here from Roll Dog 77. He says that he's painted some kitchen cabinets, he's cleaned and sanded, then he spray primed, and then he sprayed with an interior semi-gloss enamel. So I'm assuming that's latex enamel. But he didn't like the thin coat, so he let that dry for 2 days, 48 hours I'm assuming, and then he whiz rolled them and the paint blistered. Any reason why? Yes. Well, the reason could be that there's still some oily residue left on the doors, and this is a real common problem when we're repainting kitchen cabinets. And so when you say you washed them down, did you wash them down with TSP or did you just wash them down with a soap and water solution? What you could do to eliminate this problem for yourself and others who are viewing this for future reference is just take your kitchen cabinets, and let's say that they're just natural oak or wood doors and they have that urethane finish on. So you have to give that urethane finish some tooth. So sanding it is a good idea. But prior to that, what you could do, or as an alternative to all that sanding, is TSP it with quite a strong solution. I don't recall what the mix is, but say the mix is 1 part TSP to 3 water. You might do half and half, make it a little stronger, and really scrub it, really get into the any profile or any detail that are on the doors, and also around where the handles are, where people handle it, there's oils from the skin, and even if it doesn't feel like greasy food grease, you might still get oils from people handling the doors. So if you TSP everything front and back, that should remove any grease and oils, and it should also give the finish on there, the current finish, whether it be paint or clear coat or lacquer coat, should give it some tooth. That is, should give it something for the new paint to bond onto. Now another problem could be that when you spray painted, there could be some oil coming, or some kind of material coming through the sprayer, whether that be thinner or an oil you might use to lubricate the gun, or even the machine may have a leak in a seal in the machine, so it's spitting out a little bit of oil. And if that creates a film that you might not notice, it might go on with the primer coat, but then as you tend to put more subsequent coats on it, it'll lift, and then it will react, and then you'll start to get bubbles. You could get crazing, alligatoring, you could get a number of problems. So there's a couple of things that could be going on. So I would check to see if the sprayer isn't spitting out oil somehow. Maybe get it serviced, make sure the seals are intact. And then I would be really sure to get any grease off. Soap and water doesn't really cut it in this case. That might work in some applications in an exterior project, maybe. Maybe under pressure if we're pressure washing. But really, soap and water isn't enough. We need to go TSP. So I hope that helps you out. Hope that answers your question. And I think we have one more. Yes, Foxman. And he's referring to how to clear coat wood doors, the video I did. And it says, what type of sanding grit did you use after the first clear coat? Okay, so if I failed to mention that in the video, I may have mentioned it in subsequent videos because I remember this question and I've tried to keep that in mind. But yes, you want to stain your wood, whatever it is, a door or a piece of furniture. Then you want to add a clear coat, and what you'll find is that the clear coat raises the grain and it seals the piece, but it raises the grain so it feels rough. When it's dry, it feels rough to touch, and a lot of the clear coat is absorbed into the surface, so it may not give you the finish that you need, and you'll appreciate you'll need to add subsequent coats. But for that first coat, you need to be careful not to sand, especially on hard edges. If the edges aren't rounded off, which you really should have knocked off any hard edge, even if it's a sharp edge, you need to knock off that super sharp edge, or the stain won't even adhere to it, let alone the clear coat. So now, once that first coat of clear coat is gone, you need to be careful not to be too aggressive on those hard edges or those raised edges, because you can sand right through to the bare wood again, even though it's been sealed. So what I would recommend is either a used sanding sponge, and you can use it in an inconspicuous area, and all you really want to do is, you're not trying to sand that right down again. All you're trying to do is knock off those high spots, if you will, or that rough feeling. It really doesn't take much. So a used sanding sponge, or I wouldn't use anything coarser than even 150 would be, you'd have to be careful with 150, 180 grit, and if you had a used piece of it that was clean, that wasn't clogged with paint, you could go with that. But again, you want to be super careful on those raised edges, those hard edges where you could cut right through the stain, and then you'd be restaining again. So be careful just to work on the flatter areas, the areas that you touch, and if things are eye level, if it's a door frame or a door, we certainly want to get those areas smoothed out so that the finish is looking good on them. But try to be careful on those high spots, and try to use a worn piece of sandpaper, but you know, you got to have a little bit of activity. You know, you do want to make sure it's somewhat effective. You just have to exercise caution. So I hope that helps you. And then of course, as you do subsequent coats, you can go finer with the sandpaper. All you're trying to do is create a nice finish for those next coats, and you do have to sand between coats, and then if you do, you'll get a much nicer looking finish by the time you're done. So I hope this answers a few of your questions. That's all I had for 2014. The rest I kind of answered on the channel as they came up. If I missed any, I apologize. If you really want to know, try to send them again. I appreciate your interest in the channel, and just keep the questions and comments rolling in, constructive comments that is. You know, we're all here to learn, so I do appreciate constructive comments. I'll leave them on there for all of yours to see. In the meantime, a few other questions have come in and suggestions for videos. I'll do my best to get to them, just depends on the circumstances as far as demonstrations go. If I don't respond to your questions on the channel directly, look out for another Q&A. We'll try to get them covered there. Thanks for tuning in once again, YouTubers. Until next time, it's been Craig the Muskoka Painter.